Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, the tabs video. And today I'm gonna do something a bit different. I will be making the accurate battle simulator 12 factions tier list. This is according to my opinion, of course. Yours might be different. So yeah, I'm going to I'm going to list them based on 5 categories: strong, good, average, bad, and worse. Don't mind the FG, okay? It's just there. I can't remove it. So just pretend like those the top 5 exist there. So for this I'll be ranking these 12 factions down here, as you can see. For the 12 factions out of 14 that exist in tabs, we have the tribal, farmer, medieval, ancient, Viking, dynasty, renaissance, pirate, spooky, western, good and evil faction. Now, like I said before, there is 14 factions, not 12 in the game. But the legacy and secret faction, I think, are just a whole different level. To me, they are like way too powerful. So I decided to exclude them of this tier list video, and I will only include these 12 main factions, 12 regular factions. I don't know what to call it, main factions, regular factions, whatever you name it. I'm only going to include these 12. Here the first faction that we got here is the tribal faction. Now, the tribal faction, are they either strong, good, average, bad, or worse? Don't mind those two, okay? They're just there, okay? So for the tribal faction, they have to me some of the strongest units I think that this faction have. To me, spear thrower and the chieftains are like very good range and melee unit. Spear thrower, they not only they are cheap, which means that they can be easily spammable, but they also do a lot of damage. And most importantly is that they don't have a really how do you say this? The archer, like for instance, if an archer accidentally puts his bow behind his back, he cannot fire forward. But it's not the case for spear thrower, because no matter where you put no matter where the spear is, you can just fire forward. And that's my favorite part of the spear thrower, which is why I like them. I mean, to balance it out, the spear thrower have a much shorter range, but I really like them as they are very cheap, cost only 120 compared to archers 140. The chieftain I also very like. In fact, they're actually quite OP. I think they have like the third highest damage per second in the game, per hit per second in the game. And even though they have a short range, their stone hammer or axe do a lot of damage, and it costs only 400 for a unit like that. Very powerful. However, though, others are kind of very weak. Stoner, they good against heals, but they're very short range, and they also got a long reload time. And another thing, however, they can sometimes use the stone that they hold as a shield, which is quite useful actually. Lubbers and protectors are just crap, and stoners are useful in some situations, but most of the time not really. The mammoth, while they are very, he has a lot of health, but the problem is that he is big, that's what a mammoth is. He's gotta be big, which unfortunately means a big hit points. So a mammoth can easily be taken out by some other artillery units. So sometimes even just single powerful units like the king or the jarl. So that makes tribal faction very weak. And like I said, all of the units here, from clubber to the chieftain, even chieftain doesn't have a lot of health. Like chieftain may be mainly specialist, but he can be taken down with just like two spears or 2 arrows. Just makes him quite weak compared to other like mid tier units or mini boss units like harvester, the knight. So chieftain is not that like super strong anyway, although it is compensated by their high damage output. So Spirit and Chieftain, I think pretty much the reason why I like them. The others, not so much. Like I said, the Clubber all the way to Chieftain has low health, and the Mammoth has low health, but it also comes with a large hitbox, like I said before. So they're pretty much vulnerable to a lot of hits by the range units. So for ranking the tribal faction, I'll be I don't want to say average. um, uh, I think they kind of bad, but probably the best bad. It kind of reminds me of that image of, you know, trash golden trash bag amongst the other black trash bag. You guys see that image? So yeah, I think tribal faction I think belongs in the bad, the fourth one. So that's the tribal faction. Okay, so the next one, we put the tribal in the bad. Okay, so the next faction that we got here is the farmer faction. Okay, now I'm just gonna be honest and straightforward here. I'll be a bit quick because this one is kind of easy to explain. I think farmer faction might be the worst faction in the game. I think they might be the worst. Halflings, they're spammable but cheap, which means that they're easily killable, which can make sense. Their boss, however, I think, yeah, that's a big problem about them. Their boss has his health is too low basically, which I think is good for balancing. But not only that, his reload is so long as well. The Scarecrow got like 18 seconds reload, which is quite long. Not to mention that the wheelbarrow also sometimes doesn't do anything most of the time. Like, I mean, they're for distractions, but in terms of killing, that they're not really good at taking down like even same price squires. Sometimes because they crash a lot. And Harvester, while they are very tanky, they got quite a slow, you know, attack speed, about like 3 or 4 seconds, I think. So the only good part about the farmer faction I really like is the hay baler, because they have like a full body shield, you know, hay covering their entire body. That's the only part I like about the farmer faction. Everyone else, just the farmer is probably like only weak. I mean, it's still a good farmer. The farmer is like a good cheaper alternative to the squire, but I mean, it still takes him 2 hits to kill a squire. And halflings, easily killable. Potion seller, I think perhaps is the worst unit on this faction, at least. Not in the entire game, definitely, but for me the worst in this faction. So I think Scarecrow, Wheelbarrow, too fragile. Harvester, I think Harvester, they're kind of okay. Their swing can get like 3 or 4 units killed, weak units killed. So Harvester is kind of okay. Potion seller is horrible. Hay baler, probably the best, my favorite, because full body shield. What do you expect? And farmer kind of weak, but I really like them farmer as well actually. And halflings, I think they just suck. Only like distractions, or yeah, they're only, to me, they always feel like distractions. Halflings are very good against units like ballista, because halflings are like so short, the ballista can't even fire to the ground most of the time. So they can't even fire lower most of the time. So halflings is good, but it rarely ever comes to that scenario. So like I said before from the beginning, I believe the worst faction in the game. So I'm just gonna put them in the worst. So for the next faction that I'll be putting here is the medieval faction. So here I have the medieval faction here. Here it is, the sword icon. Now I think this is probably not only my favorite faction, but probably one of the strongest. One of the strongest, you heard that right. The king is probably one of the best units in the game. He has a lot of health, also only costs 1,500. And he can sometimes defeat units that are like far more expensive than him, because his sword does so much damage. And the king, when combined with healers, very powerful as well. And healers, yeah, like they are the first ever unit in the game that has the ability to heal. The second, I think, is the Solar Architect. And the healer is a very good support unit. And Squire, probably the most basic infantry units. It only costs 100, so you can put a lot of them in the battle. And they do a brilliant job most of the time at winning battles, winning might levels and campaigns. The archers, probably my one of the best range unit. If the squire was like a basic infantry unit, the archer is probably like the basic range unit to me, and I really like them. They have a longer range. The knight, I think, is probably one of the most versatile unit in the game. I mean, he has a shield, he has a sword. He's like a very balanced unit, and that's perhaps the best thing about the medieval faction is a lot of the units are very good. The catapult as well can cover huge parts. Its bolter can kill a lot because the AOE effect, the area of effect attack of the catapult, is also very powerful. It can decimate a whole group. And the bard, I think, is weak but can be good distractions, although that rarely ever come to my mind. Like whenever, like, okay, screw it. So bard rarely ever useful. Squire, one of the best infantry units in the game, and very cheap, very powerful. Archer, one of the best range, can fire very far. I don't know if they did less or more damage than the spiritual war though. The healer, one of the only costs 180, but for a unit that heals, they did a good job as a support unit. The knight, like I said, a very powerful unit, a complete unit, I dare to say, and like I said, they have a shield, and so they have the offense and defense in them, which makes them a very complete unit. And then there's catapult, which has a very huge AOE, can decimate a whole group of weak units, and the king, very powerful, capable of taking down many elite units, higher tier units sometimes. Like sometimes he often takes down the mammoth, who costs like 700 more than him, and the king also can sometimes take down units like much stronger than him, like the shogun, Lady Red Jade. So yeah, the medieval faction, I think, is probably one of the strongest. So I'm gonna put them in, but they're not like so powerful. So I'm gonna put them in good. Okay, now for the next faction here that will come up here is the ancient faction. So for the ancient faction here, I think the biggest disappointment in this faction for me are these two units, Zeus and Snake Archer. Snake Archer, they cost 300. Yet sometimes the snakes that they shoot out, most of the time they got ignored. I mean, they did sometimes cause a havoc to the enemy's formation, but then they just get ignored, and they sometimes they rarely ever got a kill. They don't, not rarely, but not so oftenly get a kill. The snakes, I mean, the snakes don't often get a kill. I mean, they're good distractions, but that's it. They're only good. The snakes, I think, the snake archer, I think, can be very good against units that do self-destruct, like the barrel roller, the bomb on a stake. Because when they self-destruct, they can, explode and kill the surrounding friendly unit as well, which is, I think, snake archer is very capable of, making one-time use units in their existence immediately, because the snakes are distractive. So I think, but they cost 300, which is a lot. So I feel like they should be maybe cheaper, maybe around 250 or maybe even 200. But against better units, like snake archers don't do much. Zeus, however, is probably the biggest disappointment. I mean, for Greek god of lightning, I thought he'll be, when I first saw him, I thought that he'd be probably like a very powerful unit. And I mean, he's the boss. I thought that he's going to be like very powerful, but in reality, he can't even defeat a king. He can't defeat a mammoth. He can defeat a lot of units that I think like a lot cheaper. Zeus is only good against like units that are low health, but sometimes he can't really kill the same amount of units with low health, even the same price. Like, I don't even know if he can kill 20 squires. Zeus is only good at, against weak units, and also making a knockback. But even then, The knockback must be knockback only works on weak and light units, very light, like the squire, the archer, the samurai. Not against huge tanky units like Mammoth, King, Lady Red Jade, or Pirate Queen. So Ancient Faction, okay, now the thing that I like about them, I think, is the first three units. My favorite thing is the first three units in faction: Shield Bearer, Sarissa, and Hoplite. Combine these three, you get a lot of offense and defense at the same time. Shield Bearer is a full. The shield covers the entire, almost the entire unit, so you're much better. You're sort of like a very good shield, and also the shield bearer is also quite resistant compared to the tribal counterpart, the protector. The shield bearer's shield has a lower knockback. It has a lower knockback, which means that the protector's shield can easily be like pushed over by an arrow, but the shield bearer's shield, not so much. It can actually stay intact instead of getting wibble wobble with the unit itself. Like, I think you've seen a lot of times where protector and its shield sometimes like get mixed with each other, you know. But shield bearer, it rarely ever does that. It makes them really good. Sarissa, they have a long range. Spears are very good against shields because they can get through them. Long range is very good, and I like units with long range like the Sarissa. And shield bearer plus Sarissa formation, the Phalanx formation is very OP. And not only I used it all the time, but I also sometimes had a very hard time fighting against the Phalanx formation. But perhaps I think my most favorite out of all these three that I mentioned, the first three, is the Hoplite. Because Hoplite literally has both. He has a spear and a shield. So just like the Knight that I mentioned before, they're quite complete unit. They have the offense and defense at the same time. And it only costs 180. You don't have a lot of health as a Knight, but just spam just put like 3, 4. They can do a lot, even just like small amount, like 3 or 4. I mean, long range plus a shield. It's like a shield bearer and Sarissa combined, basically. And that's what I like about them. And sometimes when I want to do something with the Ancient Faction in a level, when I want to use them, I always use like these 3 units. If I will like do something like an Ancient Faction only campaign where I have to complete a campaign using only like Ancient Factions, bet to me that I will use a lot of these 3. Bearer, Sarissa, Hoplite. To me, they win my heart in terms of fighting against other units in the campaigns. They're very powerful. Ballista, I think you can't say it anymore. I mean, obviously, they can take down large, powerful units, which I think fits the purpose very well. I mean, they can't kill large groups, but you know what? That's fine. I mean, as to compensate for that, it can take out powerful, huge hit units with huge hitbox and hit points, like the Mammoth, King, Lady Red Jade, Pirate Queen, Blackbeards, and even Giants, and so on. So, for the Ancient Faction, okay, I'm having a hard time either whether to put an Ancient Faction in good or average. I'll say they're probably okay. I don't know. I probably. I hope you forgive this, but I hope you will forgive this, but I think Ancient Faction is going to be only on average because their boss just so weak sometimes. They're just. I don't think Ancient Faction is as good as Medieval. I mean, sure, Phalanx is good, but it can be taken easily. It can be taken out easily by, let's say, a huge with large AOE, like the Longship, the Catapult. So, yeah, I think they're on average. Now, come up here is the Viking faction. Okay, now for the Viking faction, I think they're very strong. In fact, I dare say overpowered. Now, I think you all might be able to relate to this. In any campaigns that you played, in any campaigns, landfall campaigns that you played, you have to admit that fighting the Vikings is one of the hardest. Just admit it. The Vikings are the toughest opponent in the campaigns. Introduction, adventure, challenge, they're some of the toughest one. The reason why, even the cheapest unit, Headbutter, can do a lot of damage. And sometimes they can one-shot units that are like much stronger than them, much pricey than them. And if you spam a lot of them, they can do a lot of damage. Do you guys know Baron Von Games, who is a YouTuber, and back in 2017 to 2018, he actually once invented a tactic called the Velociraptor tactic. Basically, he just spams a lot of headbutters, and it was still open close alpha back then, but it seems like I don't think headbutters shows much difference compared to the alphas than to now, because they're still very OP. You just spam a lot of them, and you can still win a lot of battles with them today. Back then, the Velociraptor tactic was very OP, but now, although it's less, they're still powerful. They can still win a lot of levels. And then the Brawler, the Ice Archer, probably one of the least powerful unit here. Brawler, you're just like the Hoplite, but kind of more expensive, 220. Then there's the Longship, huge radius, and not to mention how powerful their fucking ores as well. I think their ores are like capable of one-shotting like average health units. The Monk. The Monk can be one-shotted, I think, by the Oreman, which is the units on top of the ship. But perhaps these three units are probably the most powerful of this faction. I think you already know. Berserker, Valkyrie, and Jarl. I'm just gonna be spinning forward here. Jarl as Enrich. They were crap before they were so crap before that Longship was the boss of the Viking faction. And now Jarl got a cost of 15,000. Their Enrich changes a lot. I think the Jarl got changed in the unit creator update when they got the Enrich and the Ice Arena ability, which helps a lot at combating range units. The Ice Arena was useful against it's useful against range units, so that range attacks like arrows, spears, and cannonballs doesn't hit him. He can also trap enemies inside the wall, inside the arena, and sometimes it can also be used to stall speeding units, like the wheelbarrow or the chariot. Like if they accidentally got thrown by the ice arena that he created, they die. So ice wall, ice arena, whatever you call it. As much as I hate how OP this Jarl is, I think he deserved it. I mean, he was shit before the unit creator update. He was crap. It's probably one of the units that I think I hate but fighting against, but it's kind of understandable that he needs an upgrade. I mean, we can't just brought him back to the version pre-unit creator update, because it'll be boring. And then there's Valkyrie and Berserker. Valkyries fly in the air, and I don't need to say much about the abilities of being able to fly in the air, to be able to fly in general. Radiants will have a hard time hitting you. Anyone will have a hard time hitting any units that fly. I don't need to say much about Valkyries. And then there's the Berserker. They have a fast attack speed, and they can leap forward quite far. And most of the times when you have a hard time against fighting against Vikings, there's probably at least Berserkers or Valkyries there. The reason why you have a hard time fighting against the Vikings is always because of these units, the Berserkers and the Valkyries, an iconic duo that literally makes us having a hard time at beating them. So Vikings, because of these three units, I think the Jarl, each Viking unit has like their own reason why they're so powerful. Headbutter, a lot of damage, Brawler, Shield, and Axe, a combination of offense and defense. And then the Berserker jumps, Valkyries fly, Longship has a powerful ores, and sometimes the AoE damage of the ship is very enormous. And Jarl, Enrich, and Ice Arena, don't need too much to say about it. I think the Viking deserve to be in good. Not They're still not powerful to me. Still not so strong. It's good. I'm called powerful though. I know why I call it good. So I think they belong in good. And I forgot to mention, they're kind of like on par with the medieval faction. I mean, think about it. They have a Headbutter and Squire, very versatile. Although Headbutter is a bit stronger, even though cheaper. Both of these factions also have a Brawler and Knight. Both and offense and defenses. They have like their own like leader unit, like the King version. I mean, medieval has the King, the and the Jarl, which is like the King for the Viking faction. And they also have a 8OE unit, the Longship and the Catapult. So these two factions they really have a lot in common. Okay, for the next one here that we got here is the Dynasty faction. Okay, so for the Dynasty faction, and the cheapest unit is 140, so that's already a whole lot. And the Samurai, its cheapest unit, can deflect range units, can deflect arrows, spears, makes it a shield as well. So kind of a shield as well. So I don't need too much to say about that. That's already powerful for a unit that only costs 140. And then there's the freaking firework archer being able to send people to space. Firework archer is like they're so annoying to fight against to me. The most annoying, I think, in the Dynasty faction. They also have the Monk, which I think is the least destructive. And then there's the Ninja. They cost only 500. Yeah, they're very powerful as well. Their attack speed is very fast. They have very fast attack speed. They can pull out a lot of shurikens into the enemy. And they also do a little knockback. So units easily get stalled over time by the ninja, which makes them very powerful. And then there's the dragon. This one is also powerful because it's able to roast every single weak units like squires, clubbers, farmers, samurais. And then there's the Hwacha, good against huge units. Units with large hitbox or units with a lot of damage, with a lot of hit points, a lot of health, like the King, Jarl. Well, actually not Jarl because Jarl is Enrich. The King, Mammoth, Bloody Red Jade, Blackbeard, Ice Giant, Tree Giant, very good. The Monkey King, funny enough, I think the Monk has more health than the Monkey King, even though the Monkey King is the boss. And I think the Monk is like the weaker counterpart of the Monkey King. So, but I think the best thing about Dynasty is that a lot of these units seem to have something to do with projectiles. Watch out, fires, a lot of them. Samurai can deflect. Firework Archer have like one. They have a crazy arrow firework projectile that can send it through space and then explode. So they're very good. They're powerful. They're annoying to fight against. The Fire Archers, I hate fighting against them. Not as much as the Vikings, but I still hate them. Just watch Captain Sauce when he tried to fight the Fire Archers in his during the Dynasty campaign in 2019. Look how much hard time he has against them. So I think Dynasty faction, they have a lot of good units. Monkey King, I think, are too weak, but the teleport ability is still good. The Monk has a lot of health. Watch out, spams arrows. Ninja Dragon, no need much to say about that. And Samurai can deflect. So I think Dynasty is very good. Okay, so the next one is the Renaissance faction. Okay, the Renaissance faction, they have the Painter, can dodge, cost 50 only. So they can dodge one projectile at a time. Yeah, the Painter costs 50. That's the cheapest unit for this faction, so that's powerful. Defensor, also very powerful. There's the Ballooner Archer. They're good at stalling units, and it's a dose dependent unit. You need to put more in them. It's not like one shot die immediately, or like the effects come out immediately. Like basically, the more balloons you put on the unit, the higher it will fly up. But yeah, it's a dose dependent unit, like the blow darter. And then there's the necromancer. And then there's the freaking musketeer. Probably the best, I think. The second best. You know who's the first. The musketeer probably the best. Even though they have a long reload time. But they protect. But when you put a firing line of them, you're just almost unstoppable. Unless if you're putting them up against fast units or units that can deflect. Albert is that they hit from upwards. Like the weapon is tall, like up there, and then it goes down. That's what's good about them, because they can nullify protections from the shields. Like if a squire is trying to kill a shield bearer, let's say, he can't do that immediately because he got blocked by a shield. But the halberd, its polearm, can hit the unit's head, nullifying its protection, which is very good. And it costs 400 as well. And halberd, when you put a lot of them, you put like 3 or 4 against a king, they can overpower the king, eventually killing him. So the halberd is kind of a good, he's like a chieftain, but uses a pole arm instead. And then there's the jouster. I think probably the easiest unit to control. I find it very easy to control. And when you control them, they're very OP. And they're fast as well. So that's another good thing about them. And then there's Da Vinci Tang. They're good. I think they can defeat a lot of units, like a lot of health. In fact, I think I've heard that they can even defeat Da Vinci Tang can even defeat units. They're like a bunch of powerful, strong units. There he can defeat like, I don't know, 5 kings, I think. He can do that. You just surround him. Because the cannonball is good and not bad. You know what I wish from the Da Vinci Tang? Even though he costs 4,000, I don't think he's powerful though. I think he's kind of crap. What I wish from the Da Vinci cannon is to have the similar cannonball to that of the cannon from the pirate faction. I think the cannon from the pirate faction, the cannonball for the pirate faction is far better. Or maybe they can have like, maybe the Da Vinci can have like some cannons that are like for the bomb, and then there's some for the, because like Da Vinci tank has 16 cannons, I think, in its tank. So maybe like let's say out of the 16, is it 16 or 8? 12, I don't remember. Let's just pretend like it's 12. So let's say there's 12 of it. Maybe like 4 of them at least, bomb cannon instead. The bomb cannonball instead. An upgrade I think is really necessary for this unit. Which is why I believe it. Plus, this faction doesn't seem to have a lot of shields. Spade has a shield, but it's almost useless. So, Renaissance, I think I only like the Musketeer, Halberd, and the Jouster only. Otherwise, not so much. So I think Renaissance is average alongside the Ancient faction. Okay, so here is the faction that you're probably most waiting with. This is gonna be the moment here. Okay, so this is the pirate faction. Okay, so I think the pirate faction, okay, this might be weird for you to say, but hear me out. One of the best in the game. Pirate faction consists of units that's each of them is range or has range weapons. Flintlock, it shoots out its pistols and it drops it. Blunderbuss shoots. Harpoonist shoots and kicks. Bomb thrower, well, it doesn't shoot but it throws, so it's still ranged. And then there's the cannon, shoots cannonballs. Captain, it has a cutlass and can kick, but it can also shoot from its flintlock blunderbuss. And then there's the pirate queen. She uses her 2 sword, but also has a range attack, which is actually an ability called bomb spin. So each of these pirate units have some sort of range in them, which is unique compared to other factions, because other factions don't have that. Only the pirates does. So this makes them quite unique. and also quite powerful. In fact, I actually at one point there's a tournament before I start making content here in YouTube. I made a tournament, and guess what? Pirate faction always going far in the tournament. It's always them. I think the Pirate Queen has a lot of HP, a lot of hit points, and so she can survive 2 ballista bolts. The captain, I think its pistol is very powerful. It can knock even the strongest like King Jarl, making them hold their weapon behind their back. And then there's the cannon. It has a very fast attack speed, and you can push back units like King, strong units like King Jarl. And then there's the bomb thrower, corrupt control. There's the flintlock. I think the flintlock has one of the best slap in the game, better than the peasant. Blunderbuss is a shieldy boy, and the harpooner. It's a crime that Landfall decreased the price of the harpooner from 400 to 300. So I feel like they deserve 400 because harpooner has the ability to overwhelm a unit. Yes, the ability to overwhelm a unit, especially big strong ones. Basically, the pirates I feel like most of these pirate units are literally designed to fight against strong, huge, powerful units like the King, Jarl, Lady Red Jade, Blackbeard, stuff like that. So it feels like they are designed for that. Like example of pirate factions, when they're in tournament, they're very, very powerful. They often go as far as the final. In fact, I remember doing it in the league format, and guess what? The pirates won. No joke, the pirates actually won. No joke at all. Because they have everything there is range. So, okay, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on pirates because I think pirates, like I said, probably the best. I dare say the best, not just one of the best. I mean, there's still some weak aspects. There's still some aspects that the pirate faction doesn't have when compared to others, but strong. That's it. Pirate probably one of the strongest. Faction that we got here is the spooky faction. Okay, the spooky faction. First unit is the skeleton warrior. Very weak and fragile. No need much to say about it. Skeleton archer, probably one of the best archer I think in the game, because he has fire and the fire spreads to other units, which is unique because which makes skeleton archer real good against crab units. Like if a grub unit is like very packed, skeleton archer can take advantage of that. And the heads are probably one of the least powerful. And then there's the sword caster, pumpkin catapult. Pumpkin catapult sometimes can be very shit. Sometimes they often miss their targets, though I think they're much better now. And then there's and pumpkin catapult weirdly also fires in a different trajectory when compared with the normal catapult. I don't know why they do that. There's the sword caster. I think their sword does low damage, but I think it is compensated by the output of swords that he puts out. It fires a lot. And then there's the Reaper. They're kind of a glass cannon, which basically means like very powerful but not a lot of health. I mean, I think 7 spear throwers or 6 is enough to take him down, which means it probably be 7 or 6 archers as well, enough to take him down. But the Reaper, I think, can defeat even thousands of units. I heard that Reapers can defeat thousands of like clubber squires because he's just so powerful, and plus he floats. He hovers above the ground, so many units have a hard time hitting him. And then he has the tentacle, and then this powerful AoE effect by his sight, which literally can send a lot of units flying in the air. But perhaps the most powerful here is the vampire. In the introduction campaign, the vampires literally defeated the tribal, farmer, medieval, ancient, and I think one or two levels of the Vikings in the introduction campaign. They overwhelm a unit like the harpooner, but I think even better. And plus they can fly. And when units can fly, no need to no need to ask whether it's still powerful or not, because when it flies, it's powerful. That's like a general rule here. It flies, it's powerful. But I think I think spooky units are too low in terms of health. It's just like they can do a lot of damage, but they sacrifice some health. So spooky faction I think just belong in the good one. Next, okay, so the next one here we got is the Wild West faction, or the Western faction. Now the Western faction, I think it's similar to the Spooky before, except probably much worse. They sacrifice a lot of health, not a lot. Almost all of the Wild West units can literally be killed just one shot. But you know, okay, let's talk about them. So I think the worst, I think, okay, so the first unit, Dynamite Thrower. I dare say, hear me out, hear me out. I dare say Dynamite Thrower is probably one of the worst unit in the game. Yes, one of the worst unit in the game. The worst in the faction, the worst unit in the entire game. One of them. And then there's the Miner. He has a lot of AoE damage, kind of like the catapult, kind of like a smaller catapult, yet he has a very short, it's a very long attack speed, like 3 or 4 seconds. And enemies I think can use those 3 or 4 seconds to hit the Miner, kill him. Cactus, I say the best because it's literally invincible against ranged units. And there's the Gunslinger, I say the best in the faction. They are crowd control units. They can shoot from anywhere. Even if the enemies are like on top of a building and then the Gunslinger is down there, you can shoot no problem. And I think Gunslinger's bullet can also go through buildings as well, and even structures like caves in the Tribal 1, I think. So no need to say much about that. And then there's the Lasso. I think Lasso is probably also the worst horse cavalry type unit in the game. I rarely use the Lasso, and sometimes when I use it, I always end up using it like a jouster. And then there's the Deadeye. What I like about the Deadeye is that she can shoot from a very far distance. I think she's the unit with the longest range. She's designed to take up large powerful units, like the Captain, the King, the Jarl. And then the Quick Draw, the boss unit. Quick Draw, he dodges, which is very cool for. I think Quick Draw and Painter is the one that dodge. Actually, no, I think the Super Boxer also dodge. But Quick Draw, while firing a lot, like I said, he doesn't have much health. Like I said before, the Wild West sacrifice a lot of health for more firing, for a lot of bullets. Because fires tons of bullets from the air. Deadeye fires a lot, and yes, like she has a short reload time. Quick Draw also fires a lot, and can dodge as well. Dodge projectiles and melee attacks. But you can literally overwhelm him just by placing your range units in a different manner. So I think Wild West, they're not even good. I think they're kind of. I think Dynamite Thrower and Lasso are very disappointing. I think the only ones I like here are Cactus, Gunslinger, and Deadeye. The rest are just too suck, especially Dynamite Thrower and Lasso and Miner as well. So they might not even be average to me. I think they might be the same part as bad. I think they're bad. Okay, so the next faction here is the Fantasy Good faction, but the first fantasy faction that we're gonna explore here. So the Fantasy Good, okay, the Wild Gauntlet I think is quite weak. Cost 200. Actually, not really weak. I mean, 200, and when they do, I guess, okay amount of damage. And then there's the Celestial Aegis. Celestial Aegis. I kind of wish that also very good. And then there's the Radiant Glaive, pretty average, I say. Radiant Glaive is kind of like a weaker Zeus. I mean, I don't know if you about this, but the glaive that he fires can actually go through units. Although go to only weaker ones like clubbers, squires, or farmers. So he's kind of like a weaker Zeus. But the Radiant Glaive has a shield, unlike Zeus. And then there's the Russia's Paladin, which is kind of disappointing. Her hammer doesn't do a lot of damage. In fact, I think that hammer is only for supporting purpose. It delays the fire rate of other units of its enemies. Other than that, not much. I mean, the only thing that unique about Russia's Paladin is that her shield is the only shield that cannot be penetrated by bullets, not by deadeye, by muskets. They cannot penetrate her shields. And then there's Sacred Elephant. Pretty average, though large hitbox, so that could be risky. But the spears, on the other hand, are very powerful, a crowd control one. And then there's Chronomancer, the boss of the faction. Capable of time stopping. Also, just like Sacred Elephant, is kind of a Sacred Elephant's rider, a crowd control one. But I think the best part, the Divine Arbiter. They can one-shot the Reaper, the King, the Jarl, Lady Red Jade, Blackbeard. Like, why is this Divine Arbiter so stupidly OP? Why is it so OP? You can even one-shot a Mammoth, I think. Which, this unit is absurdly OP, only for costing 1,000. And the good faction has its range of good, like I think Divine Arbiter really mixes up a lot of that. Celestial Aegis has their circle thing. Fantasy good, I think Divine Arbiter alone makes this faction really OP. He has a fast reload attack speed, and you can one shot. It's like a ballista of the fantasy good. I could even put here in strong, but I'm not really sure. I could put them either in strong or good. But I think I'll say I put them in good. Oh, it's really hard to tell. Yeah, I'll put them in good. Alongside the medieval, Viking, Dynasty, and Spooky. Okay, so the last faction that we're gonna take on here is the Fantasy Evil faction. So, okay, let's take a look at its first unit, Shadow Walker, 200. Surely it's like the Diva Gauntlet, right? Punch into enemies. No, it's not like that. Because Diva Gauntlet just punching. The Shadow Walker was like, just teleports behind and say nothing personal, kid, and then stabs you in the a-hole, which is teleporting. It's teleporting just like flying. If a unit has the ability to teleport just like flying, don't ask whether it's powerful or not. It's powerful. Teleporting and flying is just absurd. For a unit that costs 200, able to teleport, that's already insane. That is already insane. And it's the Exile Sentinel, able to switch axe and shield. Shield from afar when in a range distance, and then with the battle axe in melee distance to fight to combat. The mad mechanic, it's kind of like the skeleton archer. It's not, although I don't think it's crowd control, but I think the fire also really good. The Void Cultist, I think it's slightly stronger than the Righteous Paladin. It's able to, put units into a much more packed, and it can make a group of units being more packed, which can leave them more vulnerable to Tempest Lich. Because Tempest Lich, they have a very huge distance. They can cover a huge distance. And their Storm does a lot sometimes. I think Tempestage counterpart in the good faction. I think Tempestage is very good at crowd control, while its counterpart in the good, the Divine Arbiter, is good at like one single unit, one single powerful unit. Then there's the Deathbringer, which I think is the least good here. Although he can dodge, I think. Yeah, I think he can. And then there's the Void Monarch. His sword can literally, when he slices it through, when he swings it, can literally hit multiple units, and not to mention the spikes that come out when the Void Monarch swings its sword, when it swings its claymore. I think the main reason why I feel like this faction is good is the Shadow Walker and Tempest Lich. Not to mention Void Monarch as well. I think these two are the reason why this faction is so OP. Especially Shadow Walker's teleportation, which I think is enough to explain that this faction is OP. No joke. It's very OP. So I'm not gonna waste time here because I believe Fantasy Evil is strong. No joke. So Fantasy Evil, alongside the Pirates, are the strongest. All for today's video. So this is my tier list of 12 factions in tabs from the best to worst, according to my opinion. So I will also be making units tier list, but I won't be making a video on it because I feel like it would take a very long time. I mean, units in this game are like more than 100, so I'll be putting it probably on a community post instead. So I think that's all from there is I want to say about this. So that's all. I'll see you guys in the next video.